Captain Taiwan Kim stood at the observation deck of the Earth vessel Harmony, his eyes fixed on the approaching alien world. Lumi glowed in the darkness of space, its surface dotted with brilliant crystalline structures that reflected the light of its twin suns. The ship's engines hummed as they slowed for their final approach to Lumi Station, a massive orbital platform that served as the gateway to the planet below. "Magnificent," Taiwan whispered, adjusting the collar of his formal diplomatic uniform. The dark blue fabric, embroidered with the golden insignia of the United Earth Alliance, felt stiff and uncomfortable, but he knew appearances mattered today. As the leader of humanity's first official diplomatic mission to the Lumi Empire, every detail counted. Behind him, the door to the observation deck slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Jun Park entered, datapad in hand. Jun had been Taiwan's right hand throughout their 6-month journey across the stars. "Final approach in 10 minutes, Captain," Jun reported, coming to stand beside him at the viewport. "The crew is ready. Our gifts for the royal family have been prepared according to the briefing materials." Taiwan nodded, his expression serious. "And the team has reviewed all the cultural notes we received." "Yes, though they're frustratingly incomplete," Jun frowned. "The Lumi have shared only basic information about their customs. Their ambassador warned that some aspects of their culture cannot be explained, only experienced." "That's what worries me," Taiwan said, watching as the station grew larger in the viewport. "One wrong move could set human-Lumi relations back decades. The diplomatic course selected you for a reason," Jun reminded him. "Your record of first contact success is unmatched." "Those were with species we had studied for years," Taiwan replied. "The Lumi kept themselves isolated until recently. We're going in nearly blind." The ship's communication system chimed. "Captain, we've received docking instructions from Lumi Station. They're rolling out quite the welcome." "Thank you, Lieutenant. Tell the delegation to assemble in the main airlock. We make our entrance in 5 minutes." As the Harmony completed its docking procedures, Taiwan led his team of 12 diplomats, scientists, and security personnel to the airlock. Each wore the same formal uniform, their faces a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Remember," Taiwan said, addressing the group one final time, "we represent not just Earth but all of humanity. Observe carefully, speak thoughtfully, and above all, show respect. Their customs are largely unknown to us. Tread carefully." The airlock doors parted with a mechanical groan, revealing a vast docking bay unlike anything they had seen before. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. A delegation of tall, slender figures waited for them on the other side of a ceremonial arc made of intertwining metallic vines. Leading the alien delegation was a figure that stood out even among her own kind. Princess Era of the Royal House of Lumi was taller than the others, her posture regal and confident. Her skin, unlike the uniform pale blue of her companions, shifted between shades of blue and violet like the surface of a soap bubble. Her eyes, large, almond-shaped, and containing 2 pupils each, studied the humans with unmistakable curiosity. Taiwan stepped forward, bowing slightly as had been suggested in their limited cultural briefing. "Greetings from Earth and the United Alliance. We come in peace and friendship." Princess Era moved toward him with fluid grace. Up close, Taiwan could see that what he had taken for clothing was actually part of her body, a series of overlapping plates that resembled an elegant gown. "Welcome to Lumi, Earth Delegation," she said, her voice melodic even through the translator device at her throat. "I will be your guide during your stay. The Emperor, my father, is pleased by your arrival and looks forward to formal meetings tomorrow. Tonight, we have prepared a reception to honor your journey." Taiwan smiled, relieved that the initial greeting had gone smoothly. "We are honored by your personal welcome, Princess Era. My team and I look forward to learning about your world." The reception was held in a vast hall within the station. The walls curved overhead to form a dome that revealed the stars beyond. Lumi attendants moved through the crowd carrying trays of food and drink, while soft music played from unseen sources. The human delegation mingled cautiously with various Lumi officials, each conversation carefully monitored by translators. Taiwan found himself repeatedly in the company of Princess Era, who seemed particularly interested in Earth culture. Her questions were insightful, focusing on art, governance, and family structures rather than technology or resources. "Your species shows remarkable adaptability," she observed as they stood near a window overlooking the planet below. "To have spread across your world despite its varied environments, and now to reach beyond to the stars. Necessity drove much of our innovation," Taiwan admitted, "but curiosity pushed us to the stars." The formal dinner began an hour later. The delegation was seated at a circular table with various Lumi dignitaries. Dishes of unfamiliar food were presented with elaborate ceremony. When a server placed a small bowl containing what looked like luminescent pearls before Taiwan, an elderly Lumi at his side leaned closer. "This is Calavish, Captain, a rare delicacy reserved for honored guests. It is harvested only once every 9 cycles during the alignment of our moons." Sensing the importance of the moment, Taiwan nodded in appreciation. He carefully took one of the pearls and, following the example of the Lumi, placed it on his tongue. The flavor was unlike anything he had experienced, sweet yet complex, changing as it dissolved. "It is wonderful," he said truthfully. Wanting to show proper gratitude, he bowed his head slightly and placed his right hand over his heart, a gesture of thanks on earth. The room fell instantly silent. Every Lumi in the hall froze, their attention fixed on him. Princess Era, seated directly across from him, gasped audibly. Her iridescent skin flushed bright pink, the color spreading across her face and neck like watercolor on paper. The elderly Lumi beside Taiwan gripped his arm. "Captain," the royal interpreter whispered urgently, his translator barely able to keep up with his rapid speech, "you have just performed the sacred gesture of betrothal to Princess Era. In our culture, that hand motion, combined with the acceptance of royal food, constitutes a formal proposal of marriage." Taiwan's blood ran cold as he looked up to meet Princess Era's wide, shocked eyes across the table. Taiwan stood on the balcony of his guest quarters in the eastern wing of the Lumi Royal Palace. The 3 moons hung in the night sky, casting a silvery glow over the crystalline city below. He turned the small device in his hand, examining it carefully. It was no larger than a coin, but its purpose was clear. Someone had been listening to his private conversations. "4 more," said Princess Era, entering the room with a small container. Her skin rippled with darker blue patterns, a sign of concern Taiwan had learned to recognize over the past 2 weeks. "I found these in the meeting room where your team gathered yesterday." Taiwan took the container, examining the tiny surveillance devices. "Same design as the others. Whoever is watching us has access to advanced Lumi technology." After discovering the first listening device hidden in his quarters 3 weeks ago, their formal, awkward interactions had transformed into a reluctant partnership. The accidental engagement remained in place. Neither could find a way to cancel it without causing diplomatic disaster. But now they had a more immediate problem to solve. "Someone doesn't want the Earth-Lumi alliance to succeed," Era said, seating herself at the edge of a crystalline table that glowed faintly in response to her presence. "These devices are military-grade, not available to ordinary citizens." Taiwan nodded, moving to the workstation he had set up in the corner of the room. Components from Earth technology lay scattered across its surface, alongside Lumi crystal circuits Era had provided. "I've been working on something," he said, picking up what looked like a small sphere constructed from parts of his communicator and pieces of Lumi technology. "It should create a field that will disrupt these devices without alerting whoever placed them." Era moved closer, her dual-pupilled eyes studying his work with fascination. "How did you determine the frequency to block?" "Trial and error, mostly," Taiwan admitted. "I tested different signals until I found one that made the devices stop transmitting." "Remarkable," Era said, her skin shifting to a lighter shade that indicated interest. Looney engineers would have followed established protocols, consulted historical records of similar problems, and applied tested solutions. It would have taken weeks and required approval from 3 different ministries. Humans solve problems differently than we do, she observed, touching the device gently with one slender finger. You don't rely on established methods. Taiwan smiled. We call it thinking outside the box. When you've only been traveling between stars for a century, you learn to improvise. He activated the device, which emitted a soft hum. A barely visible ripple spread through the air around them. There, he said. Now we can speak freely, at least in this room. Over the next few days, they made more of these disruptors, placing them strategically throughout the areas where the Earth delegation worked and lived. Their collaboration became more comfortable as they worked toward a common goal. One afternoon, as they placed the last disruptor in the diplomatic meeting room, Era suggested a detour. There's something I would like to show you, she said, leading him down corridors of the palace he hadn't yet seen. They emerged into an expansive garden unlike any Taiwan had encountered on Lumi. Instead of the geometric precision of other Lumi gardens, this one seemed almost wild. Crystalline plants grew alongside organic ones, creating a harmony between the 2 forms of life that had evolved on the planet. A small stream ran through the center, its water glowing with bioluminescent organisms. This is beautiful, Taiwan said, genuinely impressed. It's different from the other gardens. I designed it myself, Era replied, her skin glowing with pride, soft purples and blues dancing across her surface. Traditional Lumi gardens follow strict patterns established centuries ago. I wanted something that reflected both our worlds. She led him to a small pavilion overlooking a pond. Above them, the dome was transparent, offering a clear view of the stars above. I studied astronomy before my royal duties took precedence, she said, gesturing to the stars. I've always wondered what lies beyond our star system, what other worlds look like, how other species live. Taiwan looked at her with new understanding. Is that why you were chosen as our liaison? Because of your interest in other worlds? Partly, she admitted, though no one expected the liaison position to become more permanent. Her skin rippled with colors that Taiwan now recognized as embarrassment. About that, he began cautiously. I've been researching Lumi customs. Is there truly no way to undo the betrothal without causing offense? Era's colors darkened slightly. The ritual is considered binding because it's rare for it to happen by accident. The precise combination of accepting royal food and making the sacred gesture, most Lumi spend years considering such a step. Taiwan nodded thoughtfully. On Earth, engagements can be broken, though it's often complicated. The complication here is political, Era explained. My father sees this as an opportunity. The first human-Lumi union would solidify our alliance in a way no treaty could. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the strange fish-like creatures glide through the glowing pond. Perhaps someday you could visit Earth, Taiwan suggested, surprising himself with how much he meant it. Our skies are different, but the stars are just as beautiful. Era's skin brightened. I would like that. Their moment of connection was interrupted by the urgent chirping of Taiwan's communicator. He answered to find Jun's concerned face on the screen. Captain, you need to return immediately. There's been a security breach. 15 minutes later, Taiwan stared at the evidence laid out before him in the secure meeting room. Classified documents from the Earth delegation. Trade proposals, defense capabilities, resource reports had been discovered in the possession of agents from the Vex Confederation, a rival empire known for their hostility toward Earth. They were caught trying to leave the system, Jun explained. The Lumi security forces intercepted them, but they're claiming the documents were provided by us. By you specifically, Captain. Era, who had joined them moments after, shook her head. That's impossible. The Vex have been trying to sabotage Lumi's relations with other species for decades. The Lumi High Council is assembling to discuss the matter, Jum continued. Some are already calling for the Earth delegation to be detained until an investigation is complete. Taiwan exchanged a look with Era. This is connected to the surveillance. Someone is trying to frame Earth and destroy the Alliance. Era nodded, her skin now a determined deep blue. We need to find out who, before both our peoples pay the price. As if in answer, the security terminal on the wall flashed with an incoming message. A formal declaration from the High Council appeared on screen, with one line standing out in stark clarity. By order of the Emperor's Council, Captain Taiwan Kim is to surrender himself for questioning regarding acts of espionage against the Lumi Empire. Taiwan's heart pounded as alarms blared throughout the palace. The royal guards would reach the diplomatic quarters within minutes. Through the window, he could see security forces already gathering in the courtyard below. We need to leave now, Princess Era said, bursting into his quarters. Her skin had turned a dark, urgent blue. She carried a small travel pack and wore a hooded cloak that concealed most of her distinctive features. Era, you can't be involved in this, Taiwan protested. If you help me escape, you'll be considered a traitor too. I know you didn't do this, she said firmly. Someone is trying to frame you. And I think I know who. The sound of footsteps in the corridor outside made the decision for them. Era pressed her palm against a seemingly solid wall, which slid open to reveal a hidden passage. Royal escape route, she explained. This way. They hurried through narrow corridors that Taiwan realized must run throughout the entire palace. After several turns and a descent down a spiral staircase, they emerged in an underground hangar where a sleek transport vessel waited. My personal shuttle, Era said, placing her hand on the access panel. The door hissed open. Only members of the royal family can activate it. Minutes later, they were soaring away from the capital city, the shuttle's stealth systems making them nearly invisible to standard sensors. Through the viewport, Taiwan watched the crystalline spires of the palace shrink into the distance. Where are we going? He asked. Era's fingers danced across the navigation controls. The Temple of Ancient Wisdom on Kira, our smallest moon. It's one of the few places where royal decrees don't automatically apply. We'll have time there to figure out who's behind this. The journey to the moon took less than an hour. As they approached, Taiwan saw a stark landscape of gray stone and deep craters. Unlike Lumi itself, the moon had no crystal formations and appeared lifeless. There, Era pointed to a structure built into the side of a mountain. Unlike the elegant crystal architecture of Lumi, the temple was constructed of massive stone blocks that looked as if they had been placed there at the beginning of time. Their landing was rough. The temple landing pad had not been used in years. Once inside, they found themselves in a vast chamber lit by soft lights that activated as they entered. Ancient symbols covered the walls, and the air smelled of age and mystery. This temple dates back to before the Crystal Age, Era explained. It's considered neutral ground, a place for reflection and truth. Even the Emperor must follow special protocols here. They set up a makeshift command center using equipment from Era's shuttle. She accessed the royal data network using her personal codes while Taiwan established a secure connection to Commander Jun, who remained hidden with the rest of the Earth delegation. The situation is deteriorating, Jun reported via the encrypted channel. The Lumi High Council has suspended all diplomatic relations pending an investigation. They're calling it the worst security breach in a century. We need to find evidence proving who's actually responsible, Taiwan said. What do we know so far? Together with Jun and Era, they analyzed the timeline of events. The classified documents had been found in a Vex vessel, but the encryption showed they had been accessed using Taiwan's credentials. My access codes were definitely stolen, Taiwan noted. But who has the authority to do that? Era's expression darkened. Very few people. The security chief, my father, and... She paused, her skin turning a troubled gray. Lord Da, the Emperor's chief advisor. Lord Da, Taiwan recalled the stern-faced Luma who had been present at most of their diplomatic meetings, always watching silently from the Emperor's side. He's been my father's most trusted advisor for 30 years, Era explained. He has access to all security systems and diplomatic protocols. They dug deeper into the palace's security logs, which Era could access through her royal credentials. A pattern began to emerge. Each time the Earth delegation made progress in negotiations, small problems would arise. Meeting rooms changed at the last minute. Translation devices malfunctioned. And always, Lord Dai was nearby. He's been sabotaging the talks from the beginning, Ta-1 realized. But why? Era's skin rippled with dark colors of realization. He's been blocking interstellar relations for decades, she explained. Not just with humans, but with the Centauri Coalition and the Rigel Alliance as well. He believes outside influence will destroy our culture. She brought up Lord Dai's personal history, born during a time when Lumi had briefly opened its borders, only to face a cultural crisis as foreign ideas challenged traditional Lumi ways. He lost his family in the brief war that followed. Era said softly. He's dedicated his life to ensuring Lumi remains pure of outside influence. Cultures don't survive by isolation but by adaptation, Ta-1 argued. On Earth, the societies that thrived were those that exchanged ideas with others. Those that closed themselves off eventually stagnated or were left behind. They worked through the night, gathering evidence from the palace systems. By morning, they had compiled a damning case against Lord Dai. Records of his communications with Vex agents, evidence of tampered security logs, and most damning of all, a personal journal outlining his plan to fring the Earth delegation and sever all diplomatic ties. This is enough, Ta-1 said, reviewing their findings. We need to get this to your father. Era nodded, but before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the temple. Outside, the whine of approaching ships filled the air. Imperial forces, she said, checking the sensors. They found us. Ta-1 looked out the ancient window to see 5 Lumi military vessels landing outside the temple. Dozens of armed guards poured out, surrounding the building. How? This place is supposed to be sanctuary, he said. Era's expression was grim. They can't enter without permission from a temple keeper, but they can prevent us from leaving. A voice boomed across the temple grounds. Princess Era and Captain Kim, by order of the High Council, you are commanded to surrender yourselves. The temple keepers have granted us permission to enter in 1 hour if you do not comply. Ta-1 looked at the evidence they had gathered, then at Era. We could transmit this to multiple sources, your father, my superiors, even the public information networks. It wouldn't be enough, Era replied. Dai would claim it was fabricated. We need to present this in person, with the proper protocols, before the full council where he can't control the narrative. The Imperial forces were setting up a perimeter, cutting off all escape routes. Their situation seemed hopeless. Era moved to stand before an ancient Lumi symbol etched into the temple wall, a spiral that Ta-1 had noticed represented truth in Lumi culture. There is another way, she said quietly. As a royal betrothed, you have the right to invoke the ceremony of truth. It's an ancient protocol that even Lord Dai can't override. It would force a public hearing before the Emperor himself. But we would have to surrender ourselves first, Ta-1 noted. How can we be sure they'll follow the proper protocols? Era turned to face him, her skin glowing with a new color Ta-1 had never seen before, a deep, resonant purple that seemed to emanate from within. Because I will declare my intent to complete the marriage ceremony, she said. That changes everything. An attack on a royal wedding would be sacrilege. Ta-1 stared at her in shock. Era, you can't sacrifice yourself like this. The engagement was an accident. Her multiple pupils fixed on him with intense focus. I believe in what you represent, Ta-1. Perhaps this accidental engagement wasn't such an accident after all. She took his hand, her skin warming against his. The old stories say that fate often works through seeming accidents. Maybe there is a reason you place your hand over your heart that night. Outside, the Imperial forces began their final preparations to storm the temple. The Grand Imperial Hall of Justice glowed with soft blue light. Hundreds of Lumi nobles and officials filled the curved rows of seats that rose like waves around the central speaking platform. The Emperor sat on an elevated crystal throne, his skin a steady royal purple that showed no emotion. Lord Dai stood in the defendant's position, his skin pale with barely controlled anger. Taiwan stood at the center of the hall, the evidence display hovering beside him. Princess Era stood at his side, her royal status ensuring this hearing would follow ancient rules that even the Emperor's advisor could not manipulate. These communication logs show Lord Dai contacting Vex agents 17 times over the past month. Taiwan said, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. They had been brought directly from the temple to this hearing, with barely time to prepare. The encryption used to hide these communications matches exactly the type used to frame me for stealing documents. The crystal display shifted, showing a timeline of events. Furthermore, when we examined security records from the past decade, we found a pattern. Taiwan gestured, and the display showed 3 different diplomatic missions from other species. The Centauri delegation, the Rigel ambassadors, and the Altair representatives all experienced similar security incidents that ended their missions prematurely. All occurred under Lord Dai's supervision. Lord Dai stepped forward. These accusations are absurd. This human manipulates our data to save himself from punishment. The data cannot lie, Era responded, her skin flashing with colors of truth-telling, a bright, clear blue that all Lumi recognized. I personally verified the authentication codes. These are genuine records. Taiwan continued, bringing up the final piece of evidence, Lord Dai's private journal recovered from the secure palace network. In his own words, the purity of Lumi must be preserved at all costs. These earth creatures threaten everything we have built. I will ensure they never gain influence here, just as I removed the threats from Centauri, Rigel, and Altair. The imperial court fell silent as Taiwan finished presenting their evidence. Even Lord Dai seemed unable to speak, his skin now a mottled gray of exposed deception. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. For the first time since the hearing began, he spoke. "Is this how humans seek justice?" he asked, his deep voice resonating through the hall. "With evidence rather than status or tradition." Taiwan bowed respectfully. "Yes, Your Majesty. We believe truth should prevail regardless of who speaks it. The lowest citizen deserves the same justice as the highest leader." The Emperor descended from his throne, approaching Lord Dai. "For 30 years, you have stood at my side. I trusted you above all others." Lord Dai's skin turned almost white. "Everything I did was to protect Luma, Your Majesty. These outsiders would change us, dilute our culture, make us forget our ways. And yet you used deception, the greatest crime in our culture, to achieve your goals," the Emperor replied. "The evidence is irrefutable. You have sabotaged relations with 3 other species before humans arrived. You have betrayed not only me but all of Lumi." The Emperor turned to the royal guards. "Take him to the Crystal Towers for judgment." As Lord Dai was led away, the Emperor faced Taiwan and Era. "This day has revealed much about both our peoples. Captain Kim, you and your delegation have shown remarkable courage and insight. Princess Era, your loyalty to truth honors our house." The formal proceedings continued for another hour. The Earth delegation was fully exonerated. A new treaty between Earth and Lumi was proposed, with trade and cultural exchange at its center. The news spread quickly throughout both worlds. That evening, after the chaos had settled, Taiwan and Era stood on a private balcony in the royal palace. Below them, the capital city sparkled with celebration lights as citizens marked the beginning of a new era. Above, the 3 moons of Lumi created a spectacular display rarely seen, a perfect alignment that bathed everything in silver light. "It's beautiful," Taiwan said, looking out at the view. "Your world is truly remarkable." "As is yours, from what you've described," Era replied. Her skin had settled into a calm, content blue. Taiwan turned to face her. Now that the crisis is over, there's the matter of our situation. The engagement ceremony can be annulled now. Your father mentioned that the unusual circumstances would allow for a diplomatic exception to tradition. Era's skin cycled through several colors, flashes of pink, purple, and gold, before settling on a deep blue. She stepped closer to him. "What if I don't want it annulled?" she asked quietly. Taiwan looked at her in surprise. During their time working together, he had developed deep respect for her intelligence and courage. But marriage to an alien princess had never been part of his mission plan. "You're taking me as your wife." "Really?" she asked, her translator struggling with the emotional inflection. Her skin rippled with vulnerable colors as she waited for his answer. In that moment, Taiwan saw not just an alien princess, but a person who had risked everything for truth. Someone who shared his curiosity about the universe and his sense of justice. Their differences were obvious, but their values aligned in ways that mattered most. "Our differences are many," Taiwan admitted. "But perhaps that's exactly why it would work. A living symbol of what our peoples can accomplish together." He reached out, carefully taking her hand in his. Her skin glowed brighter at his touch. "Besides, I've grown rather fond of you, Princess Era of Lumi." Her multiple pupils widened with happiness, and her skin blazed with colors of joy. "And I of you, Captain Taiwan Kim of Earth." The wedding ceremony took place 3 months later, combining Earth and Lumi traditions. Representatives from both worlds attended, marking the first truly cross-species celebration in known history. The Emperor himself blessed the union, declaring it the beginning of a new age of cooperation. Taiwan wore a traditional Earth uniform modified with Lumi crystal accents. Era wore a gown that seemed to shift between styles of both worlds as she moved. Their vows were spoken in both languages, a promise to bridge not just their lives, but their civilizations. 6 months later, the first joint human-Lumi research station was established in orbit between Earth and Lumi. Named New Beginnings, it served as a neutral ground where scientists, artists, and diplomats from both species could work together. The newly wedded couple served as its ambassadors. On the opening day of the station, Taiwan and Era stood together in the central observatory, watching as ships from both worlds docked in harmony. "Do you ever think about that dinner?" Era asked, her skin glowing with amusement. "When you accidentally proposed?" Taiwan smiled, placing his hand over his heart in the gesture that had started everything. "Best diplomatic mistake I ever made." As their hands touched, scientists from both worlds worked together behind them, and ships traveled freely between their planets. They knew they were witnessing the beginning of a partnership that would change both civilizations forever. Certain officers, yes, not officially. Meyer's hands moved in an expressive gesture. "Politics is complicated everywhere, it seems." He turned his attention to Neri. "You have formed a rescue bond with this human." It wasn't a question, but Neri nodded. "Yes, he freed me from captivity." "The bond weakens with time, but choice remains." "Always choice," Meyer said, his voice gentle. "This is the way of our people. What begins in biological necessity should end in conscious decision." Taiwu felt a weight in his chest. How much longer will the bond last? Meyer studied him with ancient eyes. For most, the biological imperative fades after one full cycle, what humans call a year. The proximity requirements lessen gradually until they are gone entirely. He tilted his head. But the emotional connection that grows alongside it, that is not bound by biology. That is built by shared experience, trust, and care. Later that night, as Taiwu prepared for sleep in the guest quarters they had been assigned, he found himself mentally preparing for goodbye. It made sense for Neri to stay here, among her own kind, safe from those who would exploit her abilities. She could build a new life, reconnect with her culture, perhaps even find a way to contact her family on her distant homeworld. It was the right thing. The logical conclusion to their unexpected journey together. Yet the thought of returning to the Serenity Dawn alone left him feeling hollow. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. When he opened the door, Neri stood there, her few possessions packed in the small bag Dr. Han had given her months ago. "May I enter?" she asked formally. Confused, Ta Wu stepped aside. "Of course, but I thought you would be staying with the others tonight." Nari placed her bag on the floor and turned to face him, her markings glowing a steady, determined blue. "I have spoken with Elder Meyer and the others," she said. "They have offered me a place here." "That's good," Ta Wu said, forcing a smile. "You'll be safe here, and with your own people." Neri stepped closer, studying his face with her large, dark eyes. "The biological bond has weakened as Meyer said it would. I can stay here without pain or distress." She paused. "But I don't want to." Tai Wu stared at her, not sure he understood. "I stay," she said simply, "not because of bond, because of choice." The weight in Ta Wu's chest suddenly lifted, replaced by a warmth he hadn't expected. "Are you sure?" he asked. "This could be your home, your people." "My people are here," Nari interrupted, placing a six-fingered hand over her heart. "And here." She reached out to touch Ta Wu's arm lightly. "The ship is my home now. With you." Ta Wu smiled, relief washing over him. "Then we'll need to expand the cockpit. Co-pilots need their own control station." Nari's markings glowed a bright, happy purple. "Yes, and I have ideas for improving the navigation systems." The next morning, after gathering supplies and saying farewells to the colonists, they returned to the Serenity Dawn. The ship seemed different somehow, not just a means of escape anymore, but truly a home. As their ship lifted off, Nari sat beside him in the co-pilot's chair, no longer following behind, no longer bound by biological necessity to stay close. She was there by choice, plotting coordinates into the navigation system with confident movements. Together, they set a course toward the outer planets, where opportunities awaited for a skilled transport team with knowledge of both human and alien technologies. There would still be dangers ahead. The bounty might never be completely forgotten, but they would face them together, partners navigating the stars. As Ganymede shrank behind them, Ta Wu glanced at Nari. Her markings glowed with a color he had never seen before, a deep, rich purple-blue that seemed to pulse in time with the ship's engines. "New color," he commented. "What does that one mean?" Nari smiled, her black eyes reflecting the starlight. "Home," she said simply. "It means home. Your species shows remarkable adaptability," she observed as they stood near a window overlooking the planet below. "To have spread across your world despite its varied environments, and now to reach beyond to the stars. Necessity drove much of our innovation," Ta Wu admitted, "but curiosity pushed us to the stars." The formal dinner began an hour later. The delegation was seated at a circular table with various Lumi dignitaries. Dishes of unfamiliar food were presented with elaborate ceremony. When a server placed a small bowl containing what looked like luminescent pearls before Ta Wu, an elderly Lumi at his side leaned closer. "This is Calavish, Captain, a rare delicacy reserved for honored guests. It is harvested only once every 9 cycles during the alignment of our moons." Sensing the importance of the moment, Ta Wu nodded in appreciation. He carefully took one of the pearls and, following the example of the Lumi, placed it on his tongue. The flavor was unlike anything he had experienced, sweet yet complex, changing as it dissolved. "It is wonderful," he said truthfully. Wanting to show proper gratitude, he bowed his head slightly and placed his right hand over his heart, a gesture of thanks on earth. The room fell instantly silent. Every Lumi in the hall froze, their attention fixed on him. Princess Era, seated directly across from him, gasped audibly. Her iridescent skin flushed bright pink, the color spreading across her face and neck like watercolor on paper. The elderly Lumi beside Ta Wu gripped his arm. "Captain," the royal interpreter whispered urgently, his translator barely able to keep up with his rapid speech, "you have just performed the sacred gesture of betrothal to Princess Era. In our culture, that hand motion, combined with the acceptance of royal food, constitutes a formal proposal of marriage. Taiwan's blood ran cold as he looked up to meet Princess Era's wide, shocked eyes across the table. Taiwan stood on the balcony of his guest quarters in the eastern wing of the Lumi Royal Palace. The three moons hung in the night sky, casting a silvery glow over the crystalline city below. He turned the small device in his hand, examining it carefully. It was no larger than a coin, but its purpose was clear. Someone had been listening to his private conversations. "4 more," said Princess Era, entering the room with a small container. Her skin rippled with darker blue patterns, a sign of concern Taiwan had learned to recognize over the past 2 weeks. "I found these in the meeting room where your team gathered yesterday." Taiwan took the container, examining the tiny surveillance devices. "Same design as the others. Whoever is watching us has access to advanced Lumi technology." After discovering the first listening device hidden in his quarters 3 weeks ago, their formal, awkward interactions had transformed into a reluctant partnership. The accidental engagement remained in place. Neither could find a way to cancel it without causing diplomatic disaster. But now they had a more immediate problem to solve. "Someone doesn't want the Earth-Lumi alliance to succeed," Era said, seating herself at the edge of a crystalline table that glowed faintly in response to her presence. "These devices are military-grade, not available to ordinary citizens." Taiwan nodded, moving to the workstation he had set up in the corner of the room. Components from Earth technology lay scattered across its surface, alongside Lumi crystal circuits Era had provided. "I've been working on something," he said, picking up what looked like a small sphere constructed from parts of his communicator and pieces of Lumi technology. "It should create a field that will disrupt these devices without alerting whoever placed them." Era moved closer, her dual-pupilled eyes studying his work with fascination. "How did you determine the frequency to block?" "Trial and error, mostly," Taiwan admitted. "I tested different signals until I found one that made the devices stop transmitting." "Remarkable," Era said, her skin shifting to a lighter shade that indicated interest. "Lumi engineers would have followed established protocols, consulted historical records of similar problems, and applied tested solutions. It would have taken weeks and required approval from 3 different ministries." "Humans solve problems differently than we do," she observed, touching the device gently with one slender finger. "You don't rely on established methods." Taiwan smiled. "We call it thinking outside the box. When you've only been traveling between stars for a century, you learn to improvise."